Hey, it's your main man Mega. We are here for another episode of the Vintage House Show. It is the holiday week, Christmas week to be specific. And of course, a year, 2 years later, we're still dealing with this pandemic. And so our episode is coming to you from the studio office of your main man Mega, as we are unable to get into the studio. And so our show tonight is going to be a great replay of one of our episodes where we hosted the reunion of one of house music's most dynamic duos, J.M. Silk. So buckle up, tune in, and have yourself a merry little Christmas, because we are Vintage House and we're still bringing you the best in the history, culture, and business of house music. And here it is, a replay of this incredible and fun episode with Steve Silk Hurley and Keith Nunley.
Back in the days of the mustache, right? And here. It's not live. Y'all just recording. So. This is recording now.
I think they're live. That's cool. You all are live.
We are live.
You got to hold on to your
crashing in the show for like 2 minutes.
We are thrilled
He's
to
gonna come
have.
on my show. Why is he on your show twice?
There's the pink shirt.
He don't come on my show.
Pink shirt.
Why is he coming on his show but he ain't on my show? I know him longer.
Steve a hard time.
I've known him
Let's
longer.
do it. When we doing it?
Okay, I'm gonna give you a date.
I'm serious.
Are you?
I won't book him anymore until we'll boycott having him until he comes on your show. Hey, what's up, brother?
What's up there, sir?
I got bone to pick. What happened with the SNS? I saw
Wait, what
the
happened?
celebration. Somehow I missed it.
You missed it?
I didn't know when it was scheduled.
You didn't RSVP?
I guess
We did it on some secret agent stuff.
I-
Because the place that we were at, we didn't want to pack it out too
Right.
much because it's a really nice venue that they do weddings at. And we didn't want to be responsible for like having too many people in there and messing up.
Grain.
No, it was it was like, what is that? West Loop? West, like, what is that street? Yeah, whatever.
Oh, okay.
10 a.m. if you're somewhere else 12 hours away, but it's 10 p.m. here in the Windy City. It's your main man Mega Street Beat edition of WNUR FM 89.3 HD1. You're tuned into the Vintage House Show, Philosophical Grooves edition. It's always a special night on Wednesday nights. My co-host, DJ Lowery Branch, has been holding it down for the past 3 Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
We are grateful and appreciative. Some great shows there. And tonight I'm glad to be back. And I've got a very special show that many of you have been talking about, but now it's happening. We have live in studio the dynamic duo that was once known in the 80s as JM Silk, and will forever be known in the annals of house history as one of the greatest house duos to ever have rocked the stage, the turntables, and we have them here. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Silk Hurley and Keith Nunley.
Hey. What's up?
Hey.
So we're going to get into our show. We've got the end of a mix from
That's a banging mix, man. I was listening to that on my way here.
DJ Lowery Branch.
Somebody from Lim Bloom must have did that mix.
Lim Bloom in the house. I was asking them, Steve, did were we a house music culture? I was like, we were kinda.
Well, we were phasing out funk. We were bringing in the up tempo funk, and then right when we graduated, that's when it kind of started going there.
That's Lauren's generation got the benefit from being like Lim Bloom.
And Angie Hurley, his sister, I went to school with Angie.
Yep.
But when we were there, we were kind of like, I
had to play Lakeside at the sock house.
Right.
Yeah. They would boo me if I would play some what's it called? Schoolboy Crush and all that stuff. Steppers Jams and all that.
Steve Hurley could have played anything, and we were on the dance floor partying. So sorry. We were doing it.
I got to get in that music PC so we can get us a music bed with the Steve Silk Hurley mixes. But I lost where are my notes?
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
What you need?
You got a whole slate of questions.
You got a plethora.
And an intro.
I didn't know over there on the table.
Where were you born?
That was
Manila
already
folder.
there.
I probably took it back.
What did you want to? Did you want to bring that down or?
Yep, no, I'm gonna put up the Steve Hurley mix.
You can bring a bag or something.
Go to the Vintage House page. Love you guys. Love you, Steve. Love you, Keith. Love
Oh,
you,
you sent
Roy.
it to me. You talking about the questions?
Yeah.
You probably just look on your
DJ
email.
extraordinaire, Lowery Branch.
Kevin Abdullah said, "Hey guys."
Kevin, what's up, brother?
He's
What's
coming
up?
on the show. Can't wait for him.
Kevin been on a couple times already.
No, it's in a Manila folder.
You may as well pull it up on your email.
Roy,
All right,
you gonna
well.
dance for us tonight?
It's not under all this stuff.
Okay, we're gonna get
No,
His phone.
Oh, yes, it is.
There it is. The Manila folder.
So I'm all shook up like that.
Roy already
Boys
started,
in studio.
getting hyped up.
You're listening to the Vintage House Show on WNUR and Facebook Live. This is a special night, as we shared. We are the premier on-air radio show and podcast dedicated to illuminating and preserving the lives, music careers, and history of house music pioneers, such as these guys that are sitting right next to me. We're powered by the Modern Dance Music Research and Archiving Foundation, the only repository in the United States of America dedicated solely to the study, preservation, and celebration of the genres of house and dance music. Our mission is to preserve the memories and memorabilia that support the sustainability of this culture. And as I shared earlier, tonight's guests are a dynamic duo, one of house music's pioneering groups, with releases during the late 80s on DJ International, RCA Records, Jack Tracks, and other licensed labels, of course. We're thrilled to host the one and only Steve Silk Hurley and Keith Nunley reunited again.
Check that body, baby.
As JM Silk. One night only. We appreciate our predecessor who gave us an extra hour so that we could jam with Lowery Branch. Shout out to DJ Viddy Girl.
Thanks, Viddy Girl.
Working on the final presentation. We wish her luck, and she'll be back next week. But for now, this is the night we've been waiting for, and hopefully you guys are gonna have some fun tonight and reminiscing
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
about what it was and what it has been to be JM Silk. So how did Steve Hurley meet Keith Nunley?
Hey. Oh,
Well,
you go ahead.
I think we've always known each other. You know how I was on the punk out scene, and Chicago is very unique in regards to how we respected each other growing up. And I was a singer. Steve, of course, was a DJ, but I used to follow him as he was a DJ, you know, because he was doing great. But we were all kind of like in the same circle. Even though I wasn't a DJ, I was in bands. And Steve actually called me when he had wrote Music is the Key.
Yep.
I was working in Evergreen Plaza in Evergreen Park back then. And he called me and said, hey, man, I wrote this song. And it's being played. I play it a lot when I'm doing shows and when I'm DJing for parties, and people are going nuts over it. And they're saying I should put some lyrics to it and get someone to sing it. And they were like, well, who? And I guess a few people had suggested to Steve, you know, get Keith Nunley. And actually, it was
Farley, among others.
Right. Farley called me a week before Steve and said, Keith, I want to go in the studio with you. He said, okay. He said, all right. I said, well, give me a call. Let me know when you're ready. But he never did call. A week later, Hurley called me. And he let me hear the track over the phone. I was like, that's kind of cool. And came and got me that night, man. Went to the studio. Rest is history.
I didn't even know what he sounded like yet, but everybody who I talked to said he could blow. So I was like, if you can even carry a tune, I'm good, because I sang the original demo. And I'm not a singer. I was just trying to get the idea down.
Right.
So I wanted to put a real singer on there. When I heard his voice, I was like, oh man, this is like Luther reincarnated. What the heck?
Magic.
Yeah. So, and I was singing it in a falsetto, and you could tell that story because when we went to the studio,
actually he asked me to sing it in falsetto first.
Yeah, because that was all I didn't know what.
And that's what he knew, because that's what he was doing.
Right.
And then I had a reputation of singing falsetto too. I used to do all that Philip Bailey stuff coming up, and I tried it, just didn't feel it. And I said, you know what, man, let me try this in my baritone. And that's what I did. And that's when it went from, I am a DJ man to, I am a DJ man. And it just gave the song more power.
Yeah, because the backgrounds that I wrote were more baritone.
Right.
But I thought it would be like backgrounds, baritone, and then he do what he does. But when I heard that voice coming out of there, I was like, damn.
Yeah, it was just magic, man. I mean, who knew? I mean, it was one of those things, like one of those movies that you watch when the Temptations and all those other groups, when they, first make it for the first time. It was almost quintessentially that same kind of situation for Steve.
Yeah, a lot of destiny involved. So individually, who are you guys? Tell us, for those listeners, right, who may not have the rich history.
I am the guy who found himself through music. Didn't know who the heck I was. But then once I started messing with music, like when I was a junior in high school, senior in high school, once we had a talent show and I played the keyboards in talent show. I couldn't really play, but I was just playing at Limblom.
Limblom?
Yeah, Limblom. And I just came out of my shell. All of a sudden I started doing that. I started DJing. The next thing you know, I'm running for Homecoming King, won the Homecoming King. It's like I was like a real quiet guy, but then I came out of my shell due to music because I just had a passion for music. So I was the guy with the boombox set, making pause button tapes and playing them at the picnic or whatever. So DJing was a natural progression for me. And when I graduated high school, that's when I started really learning how to mix records together. Even though I, attempted to do it in school, all we had was the two little close and play turntables with a mic going between them to mix. So I had to get some SLB1s and learn how to spin with the
belt drive.
The belt drives like a rubber band.
That was work. That was exercise.
Yeah.
Steve was the splice king back then. Nobody could beat this man when it came to splicing on 2-track. I mean, stuff people put together, man, now it's all digital and it's done many different ways. But back then, you had to splice that 2-track together and put those mixes together, and nobody could get the beats the way he did.
I remember actually meeting you at a basement party at Kathy Nero over in Peel Hill. She had a basement party, and a Northwestern alum. Yeah. And In fact, you came and you brought. I think by that time you had all the gear and the equipment. So
I
was a
save
good
up and
night.
get me some Sir in Vegas.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I had the Vegas by then. I wasn't still using some Zenith speakers or something.
And so we hear a lot about getting the equipment. That was quintessential as well. We hear a lot of the stories about the pioneers of house coming into their own. And so your story is very much aligned to what the genre really lent itself to, right?
Yeah.
Coming out of your shell.
Yeah,
I think it was unique in itself because it was like two ends coming together and meeting.
Yep.
You know, it was because I came from, you know, the whole band thing. I was I made a reputation as a vocalist, singing in a multitude of talent shows.
What high school for you?
Morgan Park High School.
Morgan Park representing.
From Mendo to Simeon to, I mean, whoever, to so many high schools, I can't remember, but we would always win. And we even won citywide talent shows, which is how I first met Byron Stingley. And so it was my performing, it was Steve's ability to put together tracks and put together beats, and his creative knowledge of music that he was learning and getting better. I mean, he got better and better and better and better and better. And when those two nuances met, it was like we were infused, man. There was nothing that could almost stop us. And we just took off. Who knew? I mean, when that thing happened, the day we went, and I've said this in other interviews, the day we went and got booked to do Studio 54
in New York.
In New York. Nobody knew. Steve didn't know. I didn't know. We were just going to, do a show.
This was just with Music is the Key in your repertoire?
Yeah, that was all we had out at that time.
We ended up putting... We
put together something, but we had to have a show or we wasn't going to get paid.
Right.
So you had a complete show by the time the night was
over. I was like trying to make up any kind of track.
Right.
That sounds house to me. Let's do it.
One of the songs, I Don't Know, I think it was. One of the songs.
Did we do I Don't Know?
I remember you did I Don't Know in Champaign.
Yeah. Did we do Trust? Oh, was that was later.
That was later on.
Oh, okay.
But we actually created two songs in addition to Music is the Key to have a show.
I think what he's trying to say is like he came from the band thing and I came from the DJ thing. And to be honest, I was intimidated by the band thing because I wasn't a real musician. I wasn't a singer. I wasn't a dancer. I didn't know choreography. I didn't know any of that end of it. So, But then we had a record that was taken off and we needed to do shows. So I had to learn real quick to face my fears and try to learn how to at least survive on the stage. And that's where Keith and Louis Bledsoe and who else? Butch. Yeah, Butch was like our choreographer.
Yeah.
Like, so I had to take a quick course. I mean, we were practicing every day. So when we went to Studio 54, was that the show where they said, "Boo, go back to Chicago," and then by the end they were cheering?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember that. Yeah, like when we first came out, boo, boo, JM, so boo, boo. I mean, if they had eggs, they would have been throwing them before we went out because we're from Chicago.
Right. And New York had a handle, or at least they wanted to feel like they had this.
But we worked so hard on the stage, they had to give it up. Like,
I thought that was the Latin Quarter that they did that. Remember, because it was all hip hop. And then when we got on
happened
stage,
there too.
Oh yeah,
and I think a new music seminar in New York as well. And so what?
So we always had to earn it.
And how did the name then JM Silk really come to be? I mean,
well, that's a long story, but Jack Master Silk was going to be my new DJ name because I wanted to like emphasize that when I was DJing, I was trying to get people to Jack. So I would call myself Jack Master Silk. And I shared that name with my roommate at the time. and the rest was history.
All right.
Then there was somebody else named Jack Master.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll just call it myself JM Silk. Like I'm the type, I'll move on in a minute. I'll take something lemons and make lemonade because I'll just turn something. If something bad happens to me, I'm not going to harp on it. I'm going to keep moving and try to make something of it. So when I came up with that, it actually fit being a group name better than Jack Master Silk because Jack Master Silk would just sound like it's just one person. Yeah. So you know, God knows what he's doing. He just lets stuff
All the
happen.
time.
And then, you know,
It was a
It
little
just
difficult
put-
too, because when we first came out, people were like, what does the JM stand for? Well, Jack Master Silk, you know.
right.
But it was a unique situation, because back during that time, Music is the Key was Steve Hurley. Steve Hurley wrote it. I was singing it, and the interesting thing about it, we were talking about this a while ago, and because I was singing the song, he wrote it, he did the music. He was like, well, I got to be part of my own song, and creatively went home and he wrote the rap, you know, which became a very integral and instrumental part of the song, so that he can be a part and not me feel like I was dominating the song that he wrote. But J.M. Silk was Steve Hurley. It wasn't until we did that, and I've said this story many times before, show in New York at Studio 54, that we did the show, and I was really hired to perform a song that Steve had paid me to perform.
Mhm.
And so at that time, we did the show, and at the end of the show is when I came to the point, well, you know, I think I'm gonna go on and do my own thing. And there was a discrepancy, you know, that doesn't need to be mentioned. But the fact of the matter was, when I came home, I got with Peter Black.
Yep.
And I was with Danny Wilson, and I wrote Shadows of Your Love. So when I wrote Shadows of Your Love, that's when Steve came back, and we were at the true beginning, at the Inkaway stages of J.M. Silk blossoming.
The group.
So
Yeah.
he's like, no, we ain't gonna mess this up.
Right.
And Steve said, no, man.
Yeah, because at
let's
first
be
he
one
was
group.
just like when I did my record, I wasn't thinking of being an artist. I was just like,
Right.
oh, I need a record. This record, people like it, so I'm gonna put it out. Borrow some money from my dad, put it out, and that's how we ended up having a record out. But I wasn't
Correct.
thinking it was gonna be a group. So when we did a show, I just paid him like he was a side man, like he was like if it's your thing and you have like a guitar player or
Right.
somebody who you would look at as not
Musician
really
for hire.
not really, yeah, like
Exactly.
for hire,
Yeah.
which was what it started out to be, but we didn't know it was going to turn into what it did turn into.
That's the
And when we
like
saw
you said.
standing ovations at Studio 54 and encores and stuff like that, I mean, I'm like, come on now. I mean, he left. I mean, he was mad because he could see the potential of it, and then when he said that, that made me think about, like, do I really want to lose what we're building right here? It doesn't make sense. You know, everybody grew in the situation. Everybody matured. Like, this was all new for us.
Right,
It was an
absolutely.
evolutionary process
Yep.
that
Yes.
Yep.
occurred to create JM Silk. And so what I'm holding here, the 12-inch from DJ International, how did you guys move from you put it out to a deal with DJ International? Music is the Key.
Let me, it wasn't really so much a deal with DJ International. It was more, I borrowed money from my dad. I said, let's put this out, and we put it out. We had an agreement to do it a certain way. Didn't really work out that way. We moved on.
You were learning
Yeah,
again
we
and
learned,
growing.
and,
right?
and we moved on and got signed to RCA, which that's the short version of the story.
Okay,
But
okay, we'll take
I
it.
think if we go too far into it, then we might short ourselves on the movie. So,
We've got 40 minutes of deep conversation left, but we'll leave it there and move on, because here is a release on RCA. I Can't Turn Around.
Yeah.
Right. So you guys moved from the release on DJ International to getting a actual deal on RCA.
It happened so fast, man.
Yeah, everything
I mean,
was
everything was just
flying.
moving. I mean, we couldn't keep up, you know. Like I said, you would never imagine that something like that can happen. When Music is the Key came out, I think 2-3 weeks later, we were on the front cover of Dance Music Report.
Yep.
You know,
I have
from that point,
issue.
we ended up getting booked to do a show at Studio 54. When we did the show at Studio 54, then you had Copacabana start to call us, and then all the other clubs. I mean, we probably did every club in New York City and Jersey, probably.
We did Zanzibar how many
Zanz.
times? About
Oh man,
At least 8, right?
I know we did
And
Paradise Garage 4.
Sensations. Lauren Hill saw us at Sensations, and later on she used Jack Your Body on a song, on one of her songs on her album.
Did
Like,
not know this.
It was crazy.
I
I
did not
and she,
know this.
I guess she used to be at the parties, and she said Biz used to rock the party, Jack Your Body. So she said that on her album that was like the one that went like 8 million times
Yeah.
platinum. Yeah,
Yes.
so Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Like I didn't know her and Queen Latifah and a lot of people that did hip hop and R&B. They were actually in that scene. You know, like they had a scene just like we had a scene.
Right.
Know? So it was pretty amazing to see the connection of the East Coast and Chicago and how they showed us love and brought us out to their city to perform. Like I didn't know anything about going somewhere with a tape to perform. I didn't even know that existed.
So most of your performances were track days.
Yeah, we didn't have a band.
Performances,
just about
for the most part.
Right. And so in studio also with us is Roy
Stevie.
Yo.
who as you toured, you obviously put together, as you were sharing, Louis Bledsoe and Samson Butch Moore had choreography, and you were a rich stage performing group. And it wasn't just New York. You guys traveled around the country, and you began to put together a whole
DC, Baltimore. He really liked DC.
Yeah,
You remember that? You over here in the clubhouse.
What happened?
The clubhouse.
Selective amnesia.
Yeah. Roy was the eye candy.
Because
At the clubhouse?
Yeah. Roy was the man. Everybody.
There's a photograph I have here of a particular.
You don't remember the clubhouse?
No, I remember the clubhouse, but what happened?
Yeah. Yeah. No. They just was loving
no,
you.
he made the thing about them coming out with the cake.
Oh, in Paradise Garage.
Was that the Paradise?
That was the Paradise Garage. I was like, don't eat that pink cake.
All right.
Remember, I was like,
Because it had
don't eat
stuff
the
in
cake.
it.
No, because it was pink. I was like, what you eating? He was like, I'm not going to eat any. And then we go in the back. We come back. Keith had a big chunk of pink cake. I'm like, dude.
So one of the infamous photos that I also speaks to the other comment about Roy having been eye candy a lot of the times on stage was this photo at the Powerhouse.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you can see the costume.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we remember that show.
Lycra pants, full length.
They were actually running tights.
Running tights.
Yeah, I couldn't sport
They
that.
performed in.
I didn't have a physique for that.
That was Butch's idea.
Him and Butch had the.
Butch was like,
Him and Butch was in great shape. They could roll with that
outfit, just the perfect outfit for us.
And so this added to the allure that was JM Silk. I just want to go on record and be the one to state that was a part of the allure of JM Silk. But you guys did perform, I think, more than a lot of artists at the time got to perform around
Well, we set
the country and outside of the U.S.
We really set the stage absolutely for many of the acts coming out of Chicago to get the opportunity to perform.
Yeah.
If it hadn't been for Steve and I, because we were booked so frequently. I mean, it was unreal. I mean, and as I said, almost every club, at bare minimum, we did at least 4 times. I mean, every club that had stature in New York City, Zanzibar,
Red Pear.
that was in Jersey.
Cheetah Club.
This is just in New York.
Club
Red
88.
Parrot.
Club 88. We did a lot.
We did the Tunnel. We did Club Area.
Vin Diesel is the
We
bouncer.
did the
Red
Palladium, Paradise Garage. We did Silver Shadows. We did
Silver
Bentley.
Shadows, really?
We did
Bentley's.
Copacabana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Latin
Sensations.
Quarter.
Yeah.
Sensations.
That was
I was really surprised
That
we were
was
able to do
very-
Latin Quarter because that was when Lisa was hot. Was
Right.
Yeah,
Lisa was
and
hot.
Cold Jam.
Yeah. Oh, then I remember when we went to Fort Lauderdale too.
Full
about
force.
30,000 people outside.
Yeah.
That's when I was really shook. I had never seen that many people in my life.
Was that separate from like a winter music conference event?
Oh no,
or
it was totally different.
Totally.
I don't know what it was for because that's when what was the Hispanic group that was out? It was a lot
Wasn't
of
Lisa?
No.
Are you talking about Lizette Melendez and people like that?
No. The Menudos, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Remember the Menudos?
Menudo. Yeah.
They were on the show too,
Okay.
you know.
I think we stayed
But
at the
it was
Fountain
like
Blue Hotel.
we were at
back
Fountain Blue.
then. Yeah.
So you opened in some instances and headlined for others. Tell me about some of the artists that you recall opening for, and if you guys were fanboys.
Most of our shows were us, but
Yeah.
you might remember the opening ones more. Remember Levert? We did a show with them.
Yeah,
that was. They were hating on us.
They were hating us bad.
Really?
Because the women were screaming and they ain't like that.
Well, you know, they kind of disrespected our music and say it wasn't music. You know what I mean?
That was a constant battle
was when they had
in the
Casanova.
80s and 90s.
Yeah. Yep. Casanova.
And Casanova was an R&B hit.
And so
we were on a promo tour at the time, right?
Right.
For RCA, right?
With RCA.
Yep.
And it was like
JBL.
a boat. It was a boat.
JBL radio station.
Yep.
So that brings up a good point. How much did radio play in supporting you? I mean, obviously the live performances really helped drive the emergence and the appreciation of JM Silk, but radio
Mix show radio maybe, but
to play a part.
I mean, I don't think we didn't really get that radio support. Like
not
that.
even
like,
with RCA.
Yeah, which made me later on kind of not like the direction that our album went, because when we signed with RCA, we ended up going in a more R&B and pop direction because of the label pushing us that way. So consequently, most of the album is not really quote unquote house. It's like I Can't Turn Around is probably the only one that's really true house. You know, so that's one of the things that I learned, though. I'm glad I went through that.
They were trying to commercialize us.
Yeah.
This album, I think, this album cover reflects a lot of that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
The Hold On to Your Dream album, which was the album on RCA, and
very 80s.
These guys were
wham,
debonair.
That pink shirt came back though. Pink came back. We were ahead of our time with the pink shirt, right? And the yellow.
A lot of those clothes that we had.
And so you were saying, Steve, the mix shows were really where you got a lot of that support.
That's really how house music went to another level, just being honest. I mean, with the Hot Mix 5 and all the other mix shows.
Absolutely.
Like even when I was first started doing music, I was in the Hot Mix 5. So I was able to actually play my music on the radio in addition to playing in the club. So what better way to test market your music than to play it on the radio? And you know, so it was cool. Like, I mean, but it wasn't just me playing my music. It was like we all were playing each other's music. So that's really what made house music what it is. Like when people try to say, oh, this person's the godfather, this person's the originator, I don't even deal with titles, because I feel like it took all of us to raise house music. It took a village to raise house music.
The house.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember Byron was working at Barney's, and he had this song called Fix It Man, and what was the other stuff he had? Before he even blew up as Byron Stingley in 10 City, he had music that he was trying to get out there, and I was playing it on the radio, and people heard his music. You know, I was playing it, Farley was playing it, different people were playing his music, but it was more on the underground side. And then next thing you know, people started recognizing these different artists, you know, because they're getting played on the Hot Mix 5 show. Right. Saturday Night Live ain't no jive. I mean, everybody was tuning in.
Without the Hot Mix 5, without WBMX, house music emphatically would have never maybe it would have.
Well, the New York, from a Chicago standpoint, that's what broke it. But what was cool about New York and all those other places that we went, they already had a scene where they had the club mix scene. They had the mix show. They had Kiss FM. They had all these different radio shows, Merlin Bob's and Tony Humphries and all those guys. And then you had the Paradise Garage. So they already had something in place where they were going to embrace our music, because it actually was like very related to what they were doing, which was a derivative of disco. Right. Like that was our version of disco. Their version of disco was garage music, which they didn't call it garage music. They just called it club music or whatever. You know, the in between disco and house, you had the club music, which, you know, we're all influenced by all of that stuff. But, you know,
as they were by us. As they were by us.
Yep. So then, then when house music came out, then they got re-influenced by us. So it's kind of like, you know, we're like first cousins or whatever, you know.
Absolutely,
and that's why they were bringing us out there. I mean, so it took all of that, and then when London and Europe started, you know, the rest of Europe started embracing it. That's when it exploded.
Did you guys tour Europe as JM Silk?
Didn't get it. I didn't. Not back then.
Yeah,
maybe afterwards.
Well, when Steve and I had our separation, I ended up touring London, and it was unbelievable, man. However, due to some of the things that happened with like Love Can't Turn Around, I Can't Turn Around, it kind of, you know, stunted our growth in what we really could have been because of I Can't Turn Around coming out secondary.
Yeah,
when
the
it was
race
really first.
you
know what I'm saying? So and Girl Pandy was huge
in
Europe.
I did I Can't Turn Around before I did Music Is the Key.
Right.
But it was just a 4-track recording that I was playing everywhere. And I didn't know how to put out a cover song. I didn't know anything about that. So
in terms of rights,
then
and
when we got signed, you know, all those guys
RCA
knew they knew we were getting ready to put that out, and they just beat us to it. Took my 4-track tape and just, you know, I'm not gonna talk about who it was. And all that.
And you know what? That track sold 40 million copies in the UK. It outsold Janet Jackson's whole Control album at the time.
Which
What
one?
was that?
Love
Can't Turn Around.
40 million?
40 million.
It outsold Janet Jackson's whole Control album.
Who got
40 million? 40 million.
Farley?
It outsold it. I read an article when I was younger. That bad fellas outsold Janet Jackson.
We're gonna need to refer to that article, Louis Green.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know about 40 million.
No, I mean I think Janet Jackson sold 40 million, but Love Can't Turn Around outsold
When it
Janet
did come, I do
Because
so they didn't do 40 million, but they definitely outsold her in the UK.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Now that I do remember.
Right.
Yeah, it outsold Janet Jackson.
In the UK, not
in the
global.
UK.
Right.
Yeah.
So we got, Music Is the Key, Shadows of Your Love, Love Can't Turn Around, I Can't Turn Around. What were some of the lesser tracks that really you guys felt should have taken off and had more support?
Well, me personally, I like Cry the Lonely. I think Cry of the Lonely was a song that set us on the path of really doing some R&B stuff. It was very soulful. The mixes were good on Cry the Lonely. Problem with Cry the Lonely, and we were doing it. We were performing it, and we were getting pretty good applause from doing Cry the Lonely. Problem that we had oftentimes was our own rate. If it had BMX not gone out of commission, we probably would have gone even further because BMX hands down supported house music and Chicago music, whereas some of the other finer radio stations that I'm not going to mention absolutely did not support us. And that's kind of what killed us, because it was almost as if house music was in direct conflict or competition with rap music. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they were more pushing rap music than trying to push house music.
Yeah, I think had we recorded that album a little bit more in a house direction, or had we even gone overseas when Jack Your Body
referring to Hold On to Your Dream, the album on RCA.
Had we gone in a more house direction, and had we been able to stay connected to where we started, then we would have definitely had a second album and all that stuff. But I think the whole album deal was almost a blessing and a curse at the same time, but it was a great lesson for me, and I'm sure it was a great lesson for you for your future, for knowing how to deal with major labels and all that. But I think after this album, that's when I decided I wanted to do music full time. I wanted to really just I didn't want to do the rehearsal part, learning choreography, because I don't have rhythm like that. My rhythm is in my mind. It's not in my body.
Your feet and your legs.
Maybe on the basketball court, but that's about it. Yeah, that's about it.
I think the music that we did that album was definitely out of our spectrum. They were trying to change us. However, on the flip side, when I listened to that music and I listened to groups like Boy George, Wham back then, that music, had we been given the opportunity, like we were asked to go to Africa, but we couldn't go because it was during apartheid. But had we had that opportunity back then to go and promote that album, I think we would probably been huge on a global scale because of how we wrote those songs. They were more.
When I went to South Africa, I had people walk up to me with this album asking me to sign it.
That's what I'm telling you. Yeah,
I couldn't believe it. I was like, really?
But if you listen to one of the songs that Steve actually sang the lead on, is On the Rebound.
Oh, okay.
On the Rebound is a great. I listen to On the Rebound now.
Yeah.
You know, it's a great song. You know, but but you listen to the music, it's got like that. Boy George had a lot of the what do you call that?
Flute system.
The harmonica.
Harmonica. Oh, okay.
And we had harmonica and a couple of those songs too.
Yeah.
But it was along that same
B-side track.
Yeah, it was a lot to learn
On
in
the
a short
Rebound.
period of time, and to get an album out in time to capitalize on the single that was #1 with "I Can't Turn Around." It was like a lot to do in a small amount of time, and a lot of learning
Thrust.
real quick.
Yep.
So I think that became kind of frustrating for us because it doesn't happen overnight, especially when you don't really have a direction. You know, so
Did you have an A&R rep working with you from?
and they left, right? And Wendy Goldstein,
from
right?
RCA?
Yeah.
And then she was gone, right? And that's when everything kind of went. But she signed us for doing house.
Right.
Then we ended up with the R&B department and the pop department fighting over us. Like, no, we think you should do this way. You should do it that way. You should-
To be honest,
Do you guys think you would have did better without a deal if you would have just like pressed and did a distribution?
Oh, we
deal?
would have definitely done
oh,
that.
absolutely. I, personally,
Question
what
about
I
independent
really know
release.
what happened to us is individuals around us were vicariously living their music life through us. So their time had passed. And here you have these young guys. We were in our early 20s. I was 21, but Steve was 22.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They came and produced us. And you hear a lot of that particular producer's musical influence. Awesome, but it was his musical influence, not necessarily us. And
Yeah.
that's what happened.
Let's talk about
Come on,
your
Phil.
musical influence
He
a
played.
little bit and
Playing his
shift
butt off. He was awesome.
the conversation around how you were creating these tracks. What were some of the instruments you used, and what was the inspiration for, you know, what we hear
Yep.
today,
808,
even
808s,
Yeah.
909s,
still see so
chord
curly sound.
keyboards, rolling keyboards, Oberheim keyboards, like
Yeah.
just all the stuff that was hot then.
Yes.
If I had to borrow it or whatever, but I would usually just have the instruments for one day. I remember I even sampled Danny's Oberheim to make Jack Your Body
I remember.
because I didn't even have it because it was the same keyboard sound as the Shadows of Your Love, and I really
Right.
liked that sound. I was like, "Ooh, I want that sound. Let me sample that."
Yeah.
And then I made the new version of Jack Your Body. See, Jack Your Body, I had done that like 2 years prior to it even coming out. That was another 4-track record that I had, that I was doing, that I was playing at the parties. But then when I made the studio version, that's when I put in the Oberheim bass line, and then I put in the comedy from Mr. T, you know, Eddie Murphy imitating Mr. T and James Brown, and blues influence on the keyboard
Talking about
riffs.
that.
That's where Phil did help me because I asked him how to do blues and he showed me how to do it, and that's how I made Jack Your Body do all those changes because he taught me how to do that. So now that's different from me sitting back and watching them do it,
Absolutely.
which is what ended up happening here because I was kind of intimidated because I didn't know how to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
I was learning how to do it,
Right.
but I knew how to do house.
Yeah.
And they didn't know how to do house. So I should have had a little bit more confidence in the
Freedom and
studio.
confidence,
So that's when I learned, okay, I got to take charge. When I'm in the studio, I know what I want to do. I mean, if they don't get it, then, you know, it's cool. But because I could just do it in my bedroom. Because if people are reacting to your stuff that you did in your bedroom better than what you did in the studio, then that's a problem, you know.
Right,
You know what I'm
right.
saying? That means that you kind of went the wrong way with it.
Direction only.
Yeah.
I remember one of the things that Steve did, which is synonymous even today, even when I'm still performing, I still play the same track, is the explosion on I Can't Turn
Oh.
Around. And they actually took a 22 and they shot it in a bucket of sand and sampled it. And then, you know, just constantly kept doing whatever they're doing and made that sound bigger and bigger and bigger. But that's where the
And the reverb, yep.
comes from.
Did not know that story either.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. 22.
Amazing learnings. And so,
Right.
as
Don't you remember that?
Yep.
host of Vintage House, I have to, of course, tell one of or two of my favorite JM Silk stories. One of them was realizing I was living in Boston and trying to bring house into Boston. somebody booked you guys at a club
Tourist
called.
Club.
No, it was actually called Nine Lansdowne.
Oh,
Do you
Nine
remember
Lansdowne.
Yep.
I remember that.
Which is right behind the stadium where the Boston Red Sox
I
play.
remember that.
And you guys, I don't remember how I got the heads up that you guys are going to be in town, but I was there at that show in the front. I got there hours early because these are my boys. These were Chicagoans coming to Boston. I was, of course, a little homesick. And the fact that you guys were going to be performing, I was proud, Chicago strong that night. And after the show, I couldn't get backstage or whatever, but I met you guys outside of the club, the performers or artists exit. And you guys embraced me because you too were happy to see see me there. And that night, I'll never forget it. I know you guys, but to be there and support you in this, New England town, Boston, where
crazy that we ended up in Boston.
Yeah. But I mean, that
kind of
spoke
showed
to
like how house music was starting to reach.
It was spreading. Absolutely. There was a guy there. He had a record store called Nubian something, and he was influenced a lot by the New York club scene and was buying those records. But I would go into the store and tell him about all the releases coming out of Chicago, and he had to, buy these records. And certainly J.M. Silk was one of those records that, he bought handily and sold through that store very well. So Boston, you guys definitely left a mark that night at Nine Lansdowne. And then as that was before or after rather, I've been at U of I.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know you guys know this story. Even Roy, you had you and Butch were present and doing the super choreography in the ice rink. It was Kappa Carnival.
When I failed.
You guys, you don't run away with
shot.
So we were college promoters, right? Putting this show together for Kappa Carnival. People were coming from ISU and Southern Illinois.
Wow.
And they wanted to see this awesome concert with J.M. Silk. And, I had put together some shows in our apartment, but this show was, this significant venue, the U of I ice rink. And we had rented, all the equipment, the stage. We even got this smoke machine. So we were trying to figure out how to really make this an epic show and performance. Somehow, I don't remember whose idea it was, but the entrance for J.M. Silk was a car. You guys were in this car. I think it was Cedric Ball's car, actually. And you guys were driven in to the ice rink.
Right.
The audience had to spread and part ways to let you guys through. And you emerged from this car inside of an ice rink. And the fog machine was on full blast. And you guys were excited because the crowd was hyped.
Right.
Got out of the car, started up the stage, and unfortunately there was a blooper because the fog that we used was oil-based and slippery as hell, man. I'm thinking, damn, we got a lawsuit
almost hurt seriously, man.
He ran up the stairs and boom, went down hard, but he popped up. And the show went on.
Right. Yeah.
It was
singing in pain.
Man, dude, that was a hard hit, boy. I don't know if it was the hit that was hard or my ego.
Yeah.
It was.
It was like one of those falls where everybody saw it too.
Right.
Like usually you can play it off.
Right.
Worse than that, gentlemen. There's video footage. Man, Peppy Wilson, who was part of our crew, BMG, was shooting video on VHS tapes. I got it converted. Roy and I have, whenever we see each other out, he's like, man, when you gonna give me the video? When you gonna give me the video?
I've been asking him.
Man, we need to see that.
and I'm remiss in that I didn't bring it tonight. But ultimately, what I need to do is maybe put it on in the cloud, limited access initially until you guys get to see it first, and then
Right.
I've got so much vintage tape, man, of Steve and I in the studio recording and this and that. But I have to say this: when I knew that house music had begun to demonstrate its authority and power, was when we did Copacabana. Copacabana was known for live entertainment.
okay,
Known for big bands and bands. And here come these guys coming doing this song on tracks. Because when we came in with the tracks, they were like, tracks. They kind of looked at us,
Exactly.
like, what do you mean tracks? But when Music is the Key came on, the crowd lost it, and then Shadow lost it, Jackie Body lost it. And that was the change, was even with Copacabana started booking more club and house music acts, because it saw the power in the music.
Yeah, it was like a change in the culture of the clubs, almost like
I mean,
the ones that played live music, like you said.
This is, I don't use these terms lightly. I as a radio host, you have a responsibility, right, in your communication. But you guys literally have been trailblazers and pioneers, right? You created a path for others to follow. What does that feel like? Talk about that responsibility.
For me, I feel like my whole life I've always been the person that when I have an idea and I say I'm going to do something, people like they laugh at it, like, and they don't they don't think it makes sense. And then when I do it, it takes a while, and then next thing you know, it becomes a trend. So I learned after I started doing that enough, I learned that that's going to happen. People are going to doubt you, and you have to just keep looking forward. So while we were being trailblazers, I could say that personally, I wasn't really thinking about being a trailblazer. I was just trying to think about what I was going to do next.
Certainly.
Because I always wanted to stay a step ahead musically and production wise. And then he was the same way with the shows. Like, he wanted to make sure our choreography was tight, brought in Butch, and had Mr. Muscle Man here was up there making the ladies scream. Like, we actually put together a real show. Like, we were perfectionists. So,
yes.
I mean, I can't speak for him, but I think he probably wasn't necessarily thinking about so much about being a trailblazer as much as just kind of staying ahead of the curve so we could have an advantage and make people embrace what we were doing. I mean, you could maybe speak on it a little more.
I'll say this. Yeah, to a degree, because I'll never forget. I was in a band back then when Steve and I first hooked up called Showdown. Showdown band actually was comprised of Danny Wilson and Richard Patterson, along with some other brothers, Steve and I forgot his
Steve Turner.
Steve Turner, right?
Yeah.
And
his brother, yeah.
And his brother and some other guys, some other guys. John was all in the band, and I'll never forget when I sang Music is the Key, and I brought it to our rehearsal. They laughed at it. They said, "That's not real music. Ha ha ha! That's not real music," as a lot of people did. So did Kevin Irvin. Kevin Irvin, who was a very prolific singer, laughed at it. A lot of people laughed at it, man.
How do rumors get started?
Yeah, I mean, they did. They laughed. But I later on saw everyone that laughed at it when we got put on that first cover of Shadows of Your Love.
Yep.
That changed the whole dynamics of everything. Now everybody wanted to get a record out and be on the front cover. And before you knew it, Kevin Irvin was saying, "Keep taking me over here to DJ International, introduce me." Same thing with a whole lot of other groups. Next thing you know, Danny did the same thing. He and Richard, they became Full House. So in fact, I think I'll accept that. We were trailblazers. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people followed suit because we were getting booked. Literally, we were probably in New York City and on the East Coast 3 weekends out of a month.
For 2 years. For 2 years.
Straight, constantly.
Yep.
I mean, sometimes doing 5-6 shows in 5-6 different clubs in the same night.
Yeah.
I would say the pinnacle for me was going to the Paradise Garage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was like the holy grail of clubs. I never heard a sound system like that.
Larry Levan.
Yeah.
In the booth as
got
well.
to meet him, like, I mean, him, I mean, it was just, when you're up there in the DJ booth and you're looking down on all those people, and then when you're on the dance floor and you hear how that sound system is, and you can feel it, but it don't hurt your ears, but you just feel like you could just dance all night. Like I was like, man, I wish I could DJ that club.
Yeah, what was good about that to me was there were a lot of stars that was coming to Paradise Club. I remember Boy George was there one night.
I was gonna say that Eddie Murphy, Mike Tyson was there one night.
So was Prince.
And like the little room next to Larry.
Yeah,
kind of like how the Powerhouse was designed.
Yeah, a lot of stars. I mean, what was the guy that was on Different World? No,
the Last Dragon. Tarmac. He was there one night.
Are you talking about Malcolm
Jamal Warner?
Him and the guy that played on that show, a lot of them were coming out. Queen Latifah and all them they were all coming out seeing.
Because the music was just great. You know what I'm saying? Like when they tried to kill disco, they didn't really kill disco. Disco just became underground, you know.
Right.
So now you still had all this great disco music being played, and people wanted it. Like they might have publicly, like the gatekeepers or whatever, they might have called themselves killing disco by blowing up some records at Comiskey Park, but that didn't really kill disco. It just made it not really commercial anymore. But then you still had this whole underground scene, which if that hadn't happened, then maybe house music wouldn't have been born. Like, you know, by disco continuing to go in the underground, and then I'm saying, hey, well, let's do our own thing. Let's make our own records. Like I got a hold of a drum machine. First I wanted to just learn how to work a drum machine and play it at the party. So I was doing that, and I was like, well, maybe I bring a keyboard. Then I was like, why don't I just make the record at home and then try to see what happens? And I started playing my records, and they were reacting more than others because they had more oomph. Like the drums were hitting harder, and everything was like more in your face. And it was like the change of a generation, like a sound was coming and nobody really understood what it was, but it was house. Like, what better name for it?
I'll never forget when you took I Can't Turn Around to Ron Hardy. I was with you, and he played it first time at the music box, and they went crazy. And that was the Steve Hurley version. Your shirt is pink, your armpits stink. Why don't you turn around? Why don't you turn around? You know, it was straight, original. Yeah. But man, the beat was so raw.
Yeah,
it was drum machine, man, and people going crazy. You know,
I was gonna ask about. I mean, you guys talked a lot about how the New York and East Coast clubs embrace the genre, but you know, the movement here needed to be fed, and obviously you spend a lot of time feeding and supporting
too. So that's what a lot of people don't even understand is that it was like young kids following our music. That was like probably the most exciting thing to be able to get people in your age group and even younger to embrace what you're doing. Yeah. Like I didn't look at it from a marketing standpoint, but when I look at it now for what it was, we were in a great position to be able to influence the generations underneath us to embrace our music. And then those guys became producers.
What school was that we did at that time? A high school. It was
Robeson.
Oh my God!
I have a tape of that from Bobby Lay.
Video.
It was
Bobby Lay. His archives. We need to get to those for.
I got a lot of it.
Dance Music Research and Archive Foundation.
I think one of the most amazing things you guys did was the battle of the high school. So you got all the high schools to come together, just to come to your party. It was crazy, like the battle of high school. So you get Kenwood, Mount Carmel, High Park. And they all come to a party to represent their school. Right. It was amazing marketing. It was like, bring a plugger.
And people were getting along because the music was
right. The music unifying
the music was uplifting. It didn't make you want to fight. It made you want to love. You know what I'm saying?
And we went to those parties, man. We had to go.
So we've got about 5 minutes left in the show. And of course, we got to ask if there would ever be the possibility of another collaboration between Keith Nunley and Steve Silk Hurley on a song, on a track, on a release, something that might possibly occur again in the future. Is that a possibility?
Actually, we talked about it the other day. We said, what would it hurt? You know what I'm saying? Like
It's tough.
like it's we can only imagine what it would be like because of what he's done since we've been apart and what I've done since we've been apart. Who knows what that's gonna bring? Like that deserves a shot. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't. I mean, at least one shot. If
Well,
not three.
the intrinsic value of that whole thing would be, say we did it, and then all of a sudden it becomes a monstrosity of a hit. Then it would be J.M. Silk all again with the rejuvenation of house music in Chicago.
Yep.
At the forefront again. So that would be awesome.
Except I wouldn't be on the stage, I'll be on the tables. Those guys could be on the stage. I'm
Roy, are you back in?
I did learn something. I learned that that's not what I want to do. But I love playing music. I love doing music.
But
I love watching these guys do what they do. Like, I mean, I'm not to say that I would never perform again, but you know, because I know by being in the studio and learning a lot.
Right.
I've learned how to record, and I can actually make myself sound pretty darn good on the mic. But I'm not necessarily like somebody who enjoys being on stage.
I gotcha.
But who knows? I might do a record and I actually enjoy singing, and I'll be like, I think I want to do a show. Yeah. But that's the beauty of today's industry is that you can do whatever the heck you want to do.
That's right.
And nobody can stop you. So
the thing I like about Steve is that he's honest. Steve had 5 left feet, you know. It's the truth, and this is indicative to his. You'll see Steve DJ, and Steve will be on a different beat going upward, but his beats are like, and I'm like,
I'm on the
how
hi-hat.
does he do that? You know what I'm saying? You looking at this dude.
Whatever I'm listening to in the headphones, it's a certain part that I'm listening to. So I'm listening to that hi-hat going.
Right, he's going up, you know, and the beat, and he's going this way.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about how I'm gonna mix that on top of something.
Right.
So so I'm not really listening as a dancer. I'm listening as a DJ. So, but I'm listening as a creator, as a DJ. So it's kind of different. I've always just been different.
This is this is too cool. We have heard that there is the possibility, and you know, I built this show as one night only. J.M. Silk comes back together at the studios, but you know, I certainly never expected it would be limited to that. And I know that Chicago is too small. You guys, you know, come together in many different circumstances. Why would the studio be any different, right?
It's like Roy said, it's time.
It's time.
It's time.
And so on the Philosophical Grooves edition of Vintage House, we always ask everyone a philosophical question. And certainly this one's an easy one, right? It feels like there's an opportunity to believe a little bit in reincarnation. And so my question to you both is, do you believe in reincarnation?
Yeah.
Go first.
I would say I do. Yeah.
And with that, you know, why do you think it's possible?
Well, I mean, it showcases itself many ways throughout life. You know what I mean? There are individuals that come and they'll look like somebody from the past. You know, they'll sound like somebody from the past, and you're astonished, and you'll look at them like, where did that person come from? How did he or she get that style? You know what I mean? I definitely believe that, you know, all that exists in the planet, you know what I mean, that things do come back again.
Reoccur. And Steve, with 30 seconds left.
Yeah. Hey, you know, me being the free spirit I am, I believe in it. Like I believe almost anything is possible. So, you know, I'm sure sometimes some of my ancestors, maybe I'm reincarnation of one of my ancestors or something, or maybe I came from some animal. Who knows what the heck? Maybe I moved up in the chain. Maybe I started out as an ant or something, and I just worked my way up.
Awesome.
So, hey,
Roy,
you never know.
One word, yes or no?
Legalize brothels. They legalize weed. Half of the boxes get legalized.
That's too raw.
That is Roy. That is Roy.
We are Vintage House.
Yeah.
All we need now is
Boogie check. Yeah.
Where you at, Boogie check?
The only
check.
show
Samson Bush
premier historical interviews of house music pioneers. I want to give a rousing thank you and appreciation for allowing me to host this reunion of J.M. Silk. Steve Silk Hurley, Keith Nunley, thank you. Roy Bryant, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Louis Green, our super duper producer, Lauren Lowery. We're powered by the Dance Music Research and Archive Foundation. Your main man, Mega, signing off. We'll see you in 2020.
Thank you, Northwestern Radio. Thank you as well.
Thank you, and you
Happy
are.
holidays to all of the audience listening, and thanks for your support. Peace.
Peace.
All right. Thanks again for tuning in to tonight's replay of the J.M. Silk reunion show on the Vintage House Show. We wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and a Happy Kwanzaa. Be safe, and we'll see you next Wednesday.